Good morning, my friends. Now we'll discuss a few thoughts regarding Parashat Emor. Parashat Emor, this coming Shabbat in the land of Israel, we don't read Emor, we read Parashat Behar. But outside the land of Israel, everywhere in the world, there still are one parasha before, so they will read that which we read last week, Parashat Emor. Since this parasha consists of laws, many kind of laws of the festivals, but it begins with the laws of the Cohanim, the Kohen. He has more requirements than any normal Jew. One of the biggest and the most serious obligations of the Kohen is to be very careful not to contaminate himself. Today, all Jews are known to be Tmeim. We are all contaminated because we have no temple, we have no Bet HaMikdash, which was the source of purification for everyone. But nevertheless, there are several things that require attention when it comes to purity as well as impurity, tum'ah v'tahara. For example, a woman in her menstrual period, she has to be very careful not to be with her husband up to 2 weeks, right? But there is also one very big source of impurity and contamination, that is the dead corpse. You should know that, and this, everyone has to be very careful. As far as the Cohanim are concerned, of course, they cannot approach, even if they are in the same room with a dead corpse, they become contaminated. So therefore, the law is that anyone whose name is a Kohen, he cannot enter a cemetery, because there is tremendous impurity, tum'ah, that rises from the grave, because it's such a very strong kind of contamination that even the stone does not represent a partition for it. It goes up, as the Talmud tells us, tum'ah ola. Therefore, the Kohen is under very strict restriction not to enter the Bet Kvarot, a cemetery. In the old time, the Talmud says in Masechet Shabbat, shegazru tum'ah al chutz la'aretz. Kohanim, for example, were not allowed to go outside the land of Israel, because any land that belongs to Goyim was considered tameh, not pure. Why? Because in the old time they didn't have cemeteries, they buried everywhere. So since you don't know exactly where is a corpse buried there, so all the land was considered to be tameh, contaminated. So now we are going to deal with a few halachic questions that could be interesting for everyone to know. Even if you are not a Kohen, doesn't hurt to know some pieces of knowledge. So in this case, we are going to discuss halakha, Jewish law. So we said halakha number 1, that is, the Kohen is not allowed to enter a cemetery or to be in a place where there is a dead corpse, even if he doesn't touch it. But he is inside the same room, he becomes contaminated. And that's a sin for the Kohen to bring himself into contamination, because the Torah specifically says about the Kohen, V'kiddashta oto, that he is sanctified. God has sanctified the Kohen, regardless of his nature, of his greatness or not greatness. He is still considered kadosh, holy, in the eyes of God, and therefore he has, even Jews, normal Jews, must do the best they can to give him priority in several things, such as he is the first one always to be called up to the Torah, to the scroll of the Torah. And that's one of the things that show the holiness of the Kohen. Now what about small children? So first we learn that the Kohen cannot contaminate, bring himself into any kind of contamination or impurity from the first verse of this Parashat Emor, which is Emor v'daber Hashem el Moshe Emor, Emor el Cohanim bnei Aaron v'dibarta alehem ve'amarta alehem Emor ve'amarta. He shall talk to the Kohanim, and he shall tell them lenefesh lo ittama be'amav, that the Kohen is not allowed to bring himself into any kind of tum'ah of the dead. Nefesh lo ittama. From this we understand that even for his own family, except the very close family, 7 members of the family, his father, his mother, and if he has a sister who is not married yet, then if she dies, he can go. He can contaminate himself. Except those ones, the 7 members of the family, his brother, his sister, and so forth. By the way, if his sister becomes married, if she is married, she belongs to someone else. He is not a Kohen, finished. Then he's not allowed to contaminate himself by going into a cemetery where his sister, who is not married, is buried automatically. All right. So that we learn from the first verse of this parasha. What about children? Let's say a child. He's born as a Kohen. Is he allowed to go to a cemetery? Let's say he's before bar mitzvah, and he's before he starts observing the commandments. So he's under no obligation of the commandments. Is he allowed to go into a cemetery? So therefore, in the first verse, again we have the answer to this question, because the Torah says Emor el Kohanim ve'amarta alehem. That's redundant. Say to the Kohanim and say to them. That's not a way for the Torah to say. And from this, Rashi brings the words of the Talmud in Masechet Yevamot, I think on page 114, where it says Lehazhir gedolim al ktanim. From this verse, we understand that the big ones, the older one, should warn even the small children, to warn them not to go into, if they are Kohanim, of course, not to go into a cemetery. All right? What about the wife of a Kohen? I mean, she's married to a Kohen. She was not born a Kohen, but she's married to a Kohen. Is she allowed to go to a cemetery? Well, for this we have the answer very clear by the Rambam. The psak of the Rambam in the 2nd chapter of Ilchot Evel, Halacha 6, he says, Enah Metzuva. She is not under the obligation to keep the laws of purity as her husband. She is allowed to go to a cemetery. She is allowed to contaminate herself. Why? How do we know that? Because again, the first verse of the Torah, of this parasha, it says, Emor el Kohanim bnei Aharon. Tell. Hashem speaks to Moshe and he says to him, tell the Kohanim, the children of Aharon. Doesn't say benot Aharon, the daughters of Aharon. It says the sons of Aharon, bnei Aharon. From this we understand that the wife of a Kohen is exempt from this law, and she can enter the cemetery when it is necessary, and unlike her husband, of course. But here is another very interesting question. Okay, we said that a woman, the wife of a Kohen, is allowed to contaminate herself, which means to go to a cemetery. What about a pregnant woman? She has, in her womb, she has a child. He's not born yet, but we don't know, is he male or female? If he is male, he is going, if she is the wife of a Kohen, he is going to be born as a Kohen. If she is a daughter, then automatically also we don't know Also, we don't know whether she will miscarry or not. So we have here two kinds of doubts. Nevertheless, the question is quite solid. Is she allowed when she is pregnant? Is she allowed to go to a cemetery? What about the womb? What about the fetus in her womb? Don't we consider that? It's possible, right? So what is the answer to that? Is she allowed or not? For this, we have a special decision made by the Shach. Shach is an abbreviation for Shin, Kaf, which means the Siftei Kohen. He was a great rabbi, approximately, I think it was 400 years ago, in the time of the Cossacks, right? He died quite young, at the age of 42, I think. The Shach was a genius, a great man, and a tremendous source of one of the greatest authorities that we have on Jewish law. And he is found to be, of course, in the Shulchan Aruch, the book of Jewish law, in that section that we call Yoreh De'ah, in chapter Shin Ain Aleph, 371, and Saif Katan Aleph, paragraphs 1. And there he brings, on behalf of another earlier sage, known according to his book, Sefer HaRokeach, or some say HaRokach, and that's a very important source. And he says that this woman, she would be allowed, even though she is pregnant, and we don't know what kind of child is going to bring out. Nevertheless, she is allowed to go to a cemetery. Why? Because as I have mentioned before, we have what we call in halakha, sfek sfeka, a doubt joined by another doubt. The first doubt, of course, is perhaps it's very possible he will not come out alive, right? Especially in the old time. It happened many times, right? Also, maybe a girl will be born, and then there is no restriction of contamination here. So therefore, we have a rule in Jewish law, when you have a situation like this of sfeka, a doubt within another doubt, then we are lenient about it, and she is allowed. There is one big question by the Magen Avraham. The Magen Avraham is again one of the greatest halachic authorities that we have in the Shulchan Aruch. In the Magen Avraham, in chapter 343, in paragraph 2, and he says he is surprised that the Shach, alav shalom, or the Rokeach, the source of the teaching of the Shach in this case, why did he have to say that the reason she is allowed is only because of sfeka, a doubt within a doubt? Why? You don't need that. There is another good reason why she should be allowed. There is a certain rule in the laws of purity and impurity that we call tum'a belu'a, which means any kind of impurity that is still swallowed, which means still inside the body, doesn't count, and automatically she is allowed to go in a cemetery even though she is pregnant, right? We don't need the argument of sfeka in order to allow her to go to the cemetery. She is allowed. Why? Because even though there is a possibility that a child who will be born will be a Kohen, but right now is inside, is swallowed, right, by her body, and automatically any tum'ah that is belu'ah, that is swallowed, is not considered tum'ah. We don't have to refer to it. So he's very surprised that the Shach had to go to tell us that the reason why she is allowed is because of sfeka. The Radbaz, Rabbeinu David ben Zimra, he lived about 400 years ago. He was the chief rabbi of Mitzrayim, of Egypt. A tremendous authority, a great authority. Even before, about 400, maybe 500 years ago. I think he was before Maran. No, I think it was in the time of Maran, but they didn't know each other. Maran, the Shulchan Aruch, of course. So the Radbaz gives us a reasoning matter that will settle this question. So we said, why do you need the argument of sfeka when you have a very simple Very, very simple reason that tum'ah that is still considered inside is not considered the tum'ah, and therefore why do you have to say this kind of argument? So the Radbaz says, he brings it in one of his books, She'elot u'Tshuvot HaChadashot, in chapter 200, and he says that the Rokeach probably meant a woman that is pregnant, but any minute she can give birth. Now that's another problem. And she is the wife of a Kohen. She is about to give birth, and she had to be in the cemetery, let's say. She had to pass near the death corpse or a grave. But any minute she will give birth. Now there is a possibility that the child will be born right there in the cemetery. And the child, or in the room where the corpse is laying, right? So here is one possibility, and that's kvar. So he says, the Radbaz says, therefore you cannot consider it tum'ah belu'ah. You cannot consider it a swallowed kind of tum'ah, of impurity, because he is liable to come out any minute, and it could be at the place where there is contamination. That's why, in case you might say, now pay attention to this. In case you might say, because of this, let's tell the wife of the Kohen who is pregnant that she is not allowed to go in. Therefore, we need the other argument that the Shach brought from the Rokeach, that because of Sfek Sfeka, nevertheless we allow her. Right? The Sfek Sfeka, the doubt within a doubt. First doubt. It's possible that he'll come out dead. Right? God forbid. And number two, maybe he is not a boy. So automatically we have no problems at all, even though she is about to. So we say. So either way, whether you take the reasoning of the Radbaz, or you take the reasoning of the Rokeach, or the Shachs who brought that from the Rokeach, we come out with the conclusion that the wife of a Kohen, even when she is very advanced in her pregnancy, she is allowed to go into a cemetery. Now, I would like to conclude with a very important situation. You know, in a few days, right next week, we are going to celebrate a very special day. The day of the Hilula of Lag BaOmer, the 33 days in the counting of the Omer. That's also the day when Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the master of Kabbalah and the Zohar, he passed away on that day. But before he passed away, he told his disciples to be happy, because now permission is given to the world to study the study of Kabbalah. And therefore this day becomes a day of joy, right? 33 days, because before that, while we are counting the Omer, from Pesach to this day, we are not allowed to shave, we are not allowed many things, especially that because of the students of Rabbi Akiva, 24,000 have perished in a very big plague, right? And to mourn for them, that's why in those days we don't get married in those days, until by the Ashkenazim it's 33 days after Pesach, 33 days to the Omer. By the Sfaradim it's the 34th. Why is that? Because there is a dispute in the Talmud in Masechet Evamot. When did the plague that killed so many students of Rabbi Akiva, each one of them is a tremendous Torah scholar, and we mourn for them, but the plague stopped, according to that, to the first opinion, it stopped on the 33rd days. According to the second opinion, held by the Sfardim, it's the 34th day. After that, we are allowed to get married. Marriages will be in a week, a little more than a week. People will start getting married, right? Same thing also, most people will also shave their beards, their hair, and so forth. Except those who follow Kabbalah, they will stay with their beard, with their grown hair, until Shavuot. But that's already a different situation. Now the question is this. Everybody knows that Jews, by the hundreds of thousands, are going to go to the mountain of Meron, where Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and his son Rabbi Elazar are buried. We know that. I don't have to explain. I mean, so many thousands of Jews go there. Unbelievable. It's something that is unbelievable. Among them, I am sure there are many Cohanim, right? Is the Kohen allowed to go into the grave of a tzaddik, of a great and righteous man who passed away, let's say, 2,000 years ago? But the contamination, by the way, doesn't stop. As long as there is a dead person there, even if there is no more body, still the contamination is there and it cannot be removed. So now the question is, what do we tell the Kohanim? Are they allowed to go to Meron, to the place where Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and his son Rabbi Elazar are buried? The grave of Rabbi Shimon. Everyone goes there to pray. And miracles happen there all the time. And the Hasidim outside, they dance. And we light fires everywhere. I mean, everywhere we light fires. That reminds us of what the Zohar says, that at the time, those who studied with the Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai in two groups, one group consisting of 21 members, that was the very important group, but it was surrounded by a circle of fire. But then he had also a smaller group of 7 members. Those were the great ones, also surrounded by fire, and no one else can approach them. It's possible that to commemorate such an event, there is such a custom to light fires everywhere, to the point that it becomes sometimes dangerous. So now we return to our question. What about the Kohanim? Can they enter the grave of the tzaddikim, of the righteous people? Or go to Morocco, for example. Even this occasion is used, not only, they don't have the grave of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai there, but they have graves of other righteous people, like Rabbi Amram ben Diwan, Rabbi Davidu Moshe, Rabbi Chaim Pinto, great names. And the prayer there is a good prayer. So many Jews travel to Morocco, thank God for that. That's the only country in which Jews can enter without any restrictions, right? Even Israeli Jews. And what about Kohanim? I'm sure there is a Kohen here and there. I have a friend who is a Kohen. And Baruch Hashem, thank God, he knows that even though he is a guide, and he guides people to go to those places in Morocco, but he himself restricts himself outside. He stays outside when his friends, those that he brought himself, go into the cemetery. He himself stays outside. So now, what should we understand now? Are Kohanim allowed to go to the grave? Any grave is forbidden for the Kohen. But what about the tzaddik? A very righteous man, especially that he passed away a long time ago. Do we allow him? So let's hear the answer. There is a dispute of opinions regarding this case. And the dispute was among the Rishonim, the early ones, the sages, about 1,000 years ago, or 900 or 800. Any sage before Maran, the Shulchan Aruch, that means 500 years ago, is considered the Rishon. From the time of Maran, the Shulchan Aruch, Rabbi Yosef Karo, begins a new era, the era of the Achronim, the last rabbis. And that will continue until the Mashiach comes, right? Now, there is a Midrash Agada, for Parashat Emor, of course, our Parasha, chapter 52. And there it says there is a story, a very sad story. You know that Rabbi Akiva, our master forever and ever, no greater man than him. Rabbi Akiva, close to 2,000 years ago, was captured by the Romans because he didn't want to stop to learn and to teach Torah. And he was sentenced to death. His death, by the way, was tragic, terrible. They cut him in pieces. Like it says, Sarku et besaro b'masrekot shel barzel. They practically combed his flesh with combs of iron, of steel. And he ended up by, in front of his disciples, he passed away saying, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. We also, as I said before, we observed those days between Pesach and Lag BaOmer by not shaving and not having any weddings and so forth, because of the disciples of Rabbi Akiva, which is a great testimony by itself that Rabbi Akiva was unequal. There's no one that is equal to the greatness of Rabbi Akiva. Now, Rabbi Akiva, as we said, he passed away. But before they executed him, he was put in prison because he was a great rabbi. So even the Roman authorities allowed a servant to be with him, to serve him, right? In this case, it was his faithful servant, Rabbi Yehoshua HaGarsi. This man was a good man and everything, and he was a very righteous man, and he served Rabbi Akiva. And it happened that the day of Yom Kippur arrived. And then Rabbi Yehoshua HaGarsi says to Rabbi Akiva, Master, would you allow me please to go home so that I can join my family with the Day of Atonement? The Day of Atonement. Rabbi Akiva said, of course, go. Rabbi Yehoshua HaGarsi left. Rabbi Akiva is alone, and that was the day, unfortunately, that the Roman came and executed Rabbi Akiva on that day. And then they brought the dead body of Rabbi Akiva, brought back to the cell where he was imprisoned. Now, the Midrash tells us that Rabbi Yehoshua HaGarsi, while outside, Eliyahu HaNavi, Eliyahu the prophet, came to appear to him. And he says, Rabbi Akiva passed away. Let us go together. You and me, we will go to the prison there so that we can take care of the dead corpse of Rabbi Akiva. Oh my God, so both of them went. But wait a minute, Rabbi Yehoshua says to Eliyahu HaNavi, Eliyahu, aren't you a Kohen? You are a Kohen. We all know, according to our sages, that Pinchas, the son of Aaron HaKohen, was blessed by the Almighty God, as we find in Parashat Pinchas, and he became Eliyahu HaNavi. Throughout the centuries, Eliyahu HaNavi appears to anyone who deserves to see him, but that he used to be Pinchas. That means Eliyahu HaNavi is a Kohen. So Rabbi Yehoshua says to Eliyahu HaNavi, you cannot join me in the cell. Why? Because you're a Kohen, and the Kohen is not allowed to be in the same room with a dead corpse. The answer of Eliyahu HaNavi was, don't worry about it. Tell the Jewish people, you're allowed to go to a place where a righteous man is buried, right? And there is no tum'ah. The tzaddik, the righteous man, has no contamination. By the way, based on that midrash, the Ramban, Rabbeinu Moshe ben Nachman, the Rashba, Rabbeinu Shlomo ben Aderet, the greatest authorities that we have, even Meron in Bet Yosef, he goes only according to their opinions, right? And the Rosh, of course, but they decided according to this midrash, and according to their opinion, Cohanim are allowed to go to the grave of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and other tzaddikim. Is this the halacha, the conclusive halacha? The answer is no, because the Tosfot in Masechet Baba Metziah on page 114, the Tosfot are disputing the opinion of the Ramban and the Rashba. By the way, the Ramban and the Rashba can be found in their commentaries on Masechet Yevamot on page 61, Samech Aleph. So the Tosfot is disputing this opinion, and they said the reason why Eliyahu HaNavi joined Rabbi Yehoshua to go to the same room is not because he is not a Kohen or something. He is a Kohen. But there is one exception to the rules of the Cohanim, that the Kohen is allowed to touch even a dead body if that dead man is called a met mitzvah, which means a person who has nobody else to take care of him, a dead person, and he is found in the street, and no one is there to take care of that. Then it behooves everyone to come and take care of that body, to bury him and everything, even if he is a Kohen. So now we understand why the Tosfot says that's the reason why Eliyahu joined Rabbi Yoshua Garsi, to go in the cell of Rabbi Akiva while dead. But that does not mean that the Kohen is allowed always to go to the grave of or any cemetery and even the grave of the righteous people, right? So therefore, the opinion of the Tosfot is that it's forbidden for the Kohanim to go to the cemeteries or to go to even to the graves of the righteous people, such as Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, which brings us to that according to the Tosfot, they are not allowed to go to Meron. I mean, to Meron, okay, but to stay outside the grave of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and Rabbi Elazar. And the Tosfot brings several proofs to his opinion. He says, number one, you could find in Masechet Baba Batra on page Nunhet 58, and there it says that there was a great rabbi by the name Rabbi Benhaim, and he had a job, and the job that he took upon himself was to make sure where is the grave of the fathers, which means all the tzaddikim. He made sure he put a sign there to make sure that people will not be wrong and the Kohen will not approach that place. You see, from this we understand that even the righteous has contamination when he is dead, and therefore the Kohen is not allowed. Right? From this we understand that there is contamination even for the tzaddikim. There is another proof that the Tosfot brings there from the Masechet Sukkah on page 25, and there it says, what about you forgot those people who held the casket of Joseph? You know that Yosef HaTzadik, the righteous, the son of Jacob, he was buried in Egypt. And he was buried until the day when the Jewish people were redeemed from Egypt. When they left Egypt, they took with them, from the grave of Yosef, they took also his sarcophage, his casket, where he was concealed. They took it with them so that they will bury him in the land of Israel, in the land of Canaan. Now what happened? Those people who were holding his casket became contaminated. Why? How do we know that? If you go to Parashat Be'alotcha in the book of Bamidbar, right, you will find out that the people who are contaminated from touching the dead or being in the same place with the dead were not allowed to celebrate Korban Pesach, to eat, to participate in the lamb of Passover, right? The Paschal lamb. Why? Because that required every Jew to be in total purity. If there is any impurity, he is not allowed. So those people who held the casket of Yosef were not allowed. So they came to Moshe. Moshe, they said to him, Lama nigara? Why should we be any less than any other Jew? I mean, we occupied ourselves with a great mitzvah. We took with us the bones of Yosef, the righteous, so for that we should not be allowed to participate in this great mitzvah? Moshe didn't know what to say. He understood that they are really right, but he doesn't know the answer, so he turns to God. And God told him, we have a solution. I'll give them 1 month, exactly 1 month later. You know, when do we eat Korban Pesach, the Paschal lamb? On the 14th day of Nisan. That's the eve of Pesach, of Passover, right? Well, give them another month. In 14th of Iyar, the second month of the year, the Jewish year, they'll be allowed to bring the Paschal lamb and to eat it according to all the regulations. And this way they don't lose one of the commandments of the Torah. What do we learn from all this? We learn from this that even Yosef HaTzadik, the righteous man known as the Tzaddik, he has plenty of contamination. Otherwise there would be no problem at all. From this, because of those two great proofs of the Tosfot, we follow the halakha goes according to the Tosfot against the Ramban and the Rashbi, as I have mentioned before, and Kohanim are not allowed to enter any kind of dead person, even the most righteous man, and even though he passed away a long time ago, and therefore they cannot participate in going into the chamber where the grave of Rabbi Shimon and his son Rabbi Elazar are buried. With this we conclude and we say Shabbat Shalom to you, my friends.